Hi, I'm Della, and I would like to share my love of cross stitch with you today. I've got the magazine, the Stitchery Magazine, to show you. This one is from May 1998. The Stitchery is published by Stitcher's World, which published a lot of pamphlets of cross stitch designs and also kits. And they also published Stitcher's World magazine, which I will show you in another video because I just don't think I have time to show you that in one video. Um, there's a lot in the Stitchery magazine, and then there's a lot in each Stitcher's World magazine. And so for that reason, um, we're just going to do the one. Let's have a look at the designs on the cover. So that was several designs that I was able to show you, some really beautiful designs, and we'll go ahead and look inside the magazine. First thing I'm going to show you is actually an advertisement. That is this advertisement right here. So this company may or may not still be in business, but I just wanted you to see some of the storage possibilities there are out there for your frames and um, things like that that you might use. Um, my mother was on the phone with her grandson, my nephew, the other day, and she wanted him to have a look at some YouTube videos and see some of the things that people have created and make her something. And he thought that looked possible. I guess it would intimidate me to do that, but for people who are good with woodworking, even though they themselves don't cross stitch, it's a nice little challenge and yet not as much of a challenge as some things that you make with wood, I guess. And then I also just wanted to point out on the bottom, they have an advertisement for needlework festivals. So even though this is, 25 years old, I just wanted to show you that just if you've never been to anything like that, you can consider looking for festivals going on in your area. They might happen more likely in the summertime. This was in the fall, actually, and the spring. So all different times. And sometimes, even though it was 25 years ago, they might still do those, or they could have gotten really good in the years since then. This had Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and Ontario, Canada, Des Moines, Iowa, Knoxville, Tennessee. It's called the Spirit of Cross Stitch Festival. This was at thespiritofcrossstitch.com. I don't know if they still um, do that festival in different places or not. If but you can look and see. So next is our table of contents. Obviously, the last picture is of problems on the back of a design. There is a section in here on needlepoint problems you might have with your needlepoint projects. So it is called the Stitchery Magazine. It's not a cross-stitch magazine. So it does have lots of cross-stitch designs. Cross-stitch was very popular in 1998, and as you know, probably the easiest type of embroidery. One of, I guess, red work is pretty easy and some of that kind of embroidery, but as one of the easiest forms of embroidery, it's very popular. Um, and then they had this advertised. This is a place in New York called the Lyndhurst Mansion. I don't know if this event was just this one time, if it's something that they do continuously where you can go there and see the needlework that they have in their archives, but they were having a type of stitching. I don't know if it was a retreat or just this opportunity to go see this Lyndhurst Mansion in Tarrytown, New York. Never been to Tarrytown, but it looks like an interesting place to go, and I would love to see antique needlework. I don't know how much it would cost if they still do that, but there are some of these historic homes and museums and places around where you can do that, and museums. We have an art museum here in where I live that has a quilt show in the summertime that you can go and see the quilt show, and it's a contest. They even have, the one where the audience votes for their favorite quilt, and that one wins a prize, which is a type of needlework that you can do. So sometimes, and there's like a lace making festival in July down in a town near where I grew up. So there are different kinds of cultural festivals all around and historic places. Some of them might cost, some of them might not, that you can go to and kind of learn about needlework or see examples of extraordinary needlework. Um, Here we have the editor's note. This is probably the longest editorial I've seen in a cross stitch magazine, and I'll explain why it is in a minute. So this was the May-June issue of the magazine. Well, it says May 98, but they may or may not have had a June issue. So May is when we have Mother's Day, June is when we have Father's Day, and this woman wrote a beautiful tribute to her grandfathers and her father, and then at the bottom they had a tribute to the man who started the Stitchery catalog for Stitch World, I guess. And one of the great things I liked in that about that man was it said he was an industry pioneer, an honorable man, and a loving husband, father, and grandfather. He will be greatly missed. His name was William B. Knowles Sr. He and his wife Sue started the Stitchery catalog. Um, wow, what a wonderful thing to have people say about you after you're gone, besides the fact that they'll miss you, which is a pretty great thing, that you were an honorable man. That's great. And then this woman talked about her grandfathers and her father. She didn't grow up near her grandfathers, but her parents made sure that they got to go see them every summer, and when they would come and see them in the at Christmas time, maybe not always, but when they were there, it was a wonderful treat. And about her father, she said, um, When things are bothering me, I call home. Sometimes I tell Dad what is on my mind and we talk about it. Other times just hearing his voice and a joke from him is enough to lift my spirits. He is my hero, my mentor, my father, and my friend. Though it might sound strange for a daughter to want to be like her father, I want to be like mine. Compassionate, fair, even tempered, open minded, witty, warm hearted, outgoing, self confident, and giving in every way. What a special opportunity she had to pay tribute to these men that she admired and who had made her who she was and contributed to her life. She says such kind things. Dad gave us our baths every night, read us stories in the best character voices. Just really nice things. They don't always have a lot of cross stitch designs in these magazines kind of geared towards men or fathers. They make an attempt to have some, but it does tend to be something that has a lot of femininity in it. So it is nice, that they have something. They were not designs that appealed to me particularly, but then my father doesn't fish or golf, so maybe that's why. Um, but it's something that you could stitch for someone that is important to you. I think it feels nice to have someone honor you and pay a tribute to you and show that they're special to you. Um, so I just wanted to point that out to you in this magazine, and that's why she has such a long editorial. It also feels how that all this makes this magazine, these kinds of things, full pages devoted to these kinds of things, makes it feel kind of like a British magazine. A lot of the other American magazines have kind of short, brief editorials, very small sections devoted to letters to the editor. This is a whole page, and it has some pictures of work that the people had stitched. This is the designer Alma Lynn that had been featured in a previous issue that someone wrote about. There were two ladies from other places in the world, Poland and Germany, who wanted people um, to be able to correspond or have a pen pal that enjoyed cross stitch. And nowadays, you can just get on Facebook and join a cross stitch group. I enjoy going into one sometimes, seeing what people post pictures of what they're working on or what they've done. And YouTube is a great way, or TikTok or Instagram. People have their blogs. It's a nice way to get to share that kind of stuff. Um, and they, kind of talked about things that they loved about the designs. Like this was a really popular design, I guess, with people. The person who stitched it appreciated that it was available in cross stitch because she commented that as someone who had loved doing needlepoint, she found that she was allergic to the wool and it made the skin on her fingers crack and bleed. And so doing cross stitch made it so that she could still stitch the pretty design, even though she could no longer do needlepoint. And then something that I really like, it's kind of a trade-off with the Stitchery magazine. They have 3 designer features in this magazine. Usually you just get like one. So that's very nice. This one is Black Swan Designs. So these ladies have a lovely sort of fantasy-oriented style of design that I really respond to and enjoy. I love this picture up here with the dragon, but also these fanciful sort of things where you have the lady that is a sort of flower woman. She's dressed in a flower or she is a flower. I'm never quite sure. But anyhow, and then sometimes, I mean, that this is an angel down here, so that's maybe a little more religion than fantasy, but still, it's the approach, the way that it's depicted has sort of a fancifulness to it. Um, and I noticed in reading about these ladies that sometimes you might have other things in common with someone who designs things that have just a natural appeal to you. So maybe it's the subject matter that is appealing to you or the style. In this case, it's both, right? It's subject matter like dragons, fantasy, and then style. It has a certain. There are lots of people who do fantasy topics, and I don't necessarily always like their designs, but I like these. I like Black Swan. They're real pretty. I noticed when I read who some of the authors were that they liked, that they had an author that I really loved growing up was one that they had read, and so I think that those kinds of things are interesting to learn about people, the things that inspire us and make us who we are. Here's more of the article. I love this design. This is so pretty. Kind of got a medieval kind of feel to it, even though, again, it's an angel. It looks like an angel from medieval stories or something. This is the design that's featured in the magazine. So the Stitchery Magazine has full color designs in their patterns, which is nice. And then the paper is, a nice quality, glossy color paper. By 1998, most of the magazines did that. Just Cross Stitch still does black and white designs. But for those of you, and there's a lot of you who like to color in the design as you go, that's probably what you prefer. I like it when the pattern is full color. So we have another designer, a profile or feature here. And I love that it has 3 different articles on designers, and you get to see the other work that they do besides what the pattern is in the magazine. It helps you know, like, to go look for work by them because that a lot of times you like the other work by a designer. They have a style that appeals to you. But the trade-off is you don't get as many designs in the Stitchery magazine because of it having more articles. But you might like the designs better, so I guess it just depends. This one is Ursula Michaels. One of the things that I read about Ursula Michaels that was amazing. And this was in 1998. I think she's designed a lot since then. Um, at that point, she had already designed 1,000 designs. And she did at that point, she was designing about 100 designs a year. That's a lot. And they're really pretty. So, the next one isn't really a designer profile, but it does tell you a little bit about the designer. So we're going to count it sort of. Um, and that is, her name is Meg Thompson Chanel. Thompson Chanel is the daughter of Ginny Thompson and her husband Ken Thompson, who did the flower thread, and I think did workshops at conventions and things like that. So this thing that is attached to the pillow topper, they featured that in an advertisement on the previous, not the previous page exactly, but back here. And you can see how you can buy these. Um, so these magazines often will have a project that shows how you can use the product they've got and they have a design so that you can have a reason to buy their product. But it's nice. And back when they did this magazine, there were a lot of people had a lot of pillows like that with that kind of pillow topper. And that was just, I don't know if people have pillows that look quite that elaborate in that way, but back then they did. Um, it's pretty. This is a design I would enjoy stitching. And I think it probably uses, it has the alternative for flower thread if you want to use flower thread instead of DMC or anchor. Once upon a time, way back, like in 1998, when I would look at patterns, you could get charts that had DMC, anchor, and JNP codes. And if you get some of these from England, some of the designs from England, like I got some Madeira floss, silk floss, with an English magazine. So there are lots of different, and people gave me some floss for Christmas. I have no idea who it was, and I'm sure they didn't either. They just knew that I liked doing that sort of thing and got me the floss. So they have these nice, I won't show you the chart for the design, but they have the instructions for the Hardanger pillow topper, and it has wonderful little stitch diagrams how to do Hardanger. Now you can watch videos on how to do Hardanger. I'm sure there are websites that give you tutorials on it as well with just pictures and not videos. But you didn't have that in 1998. And it's nice to just have a print version that you don't have to watch a screen, I guess. So here is another designer feature. And this is also the design that they have the pattern for in the magazine. I'm not sure if you can hear the singing that I can hear. My father is singing just now. He loves to sing. That's how I grew up. My father singing all the time. And at the place where I work, I hadn't realized this about myself till my coworker pointed it out, that I was the person most likely to burst into song at any given random moment. So then after she said it, then I noticed every time I did. And I thought, oh, I do that a lot. All of a sudden, there I am just starting to sing something in a random moment. But that's who I got it from, not my mom, my dad. I live with my parents, my elderly parents. Just so that's why you hear my father singing. This is their house, not my house. That's why I have this big, beautiful dining room to record these videos in, because my mother, when she was gonna find a new home, she looked at a whole bunch, did not find what she wanted, and she said, "Whatever, I'll design my own, and we will build the house around the dining room." It's great. It's huge. I'm just showing you this article. I got distracted by the singing, and I forgot to tell you who we're looking at an article about. Christina Cooley. And she does needlepoint, but you can do a needlepoint design like cross stitch. You just do cross stitch instead of a needlepoint stitch. Um, it's kind of a long article. Sorry about that. I lose hold of the page. We'll look at this design a little better. I'm trying to not redo the video. I made the video once, and there was one mistake, but it was one that bothered me. You may have noticed many, but they're not ones that I will notice or will bother me. So then the video gets put on. But anyhow, the thing that I noticed about this lady when I read the article about her that I wanted to share, obviously there's lots that you can read and find interesting. Um, she got started with needlework and designing needlepoint in her case because she got a job painting needlepoint canvases. She had a kind of a background in art, and so she got this job painting needlepoint canvases, and from there has gone on to design needlepoint. I think this rabbit pillow design, whether you frame it or make it as a pillow, is really cute. I love that rabbit. Um, I like it as a pillow, but then I like the pillow designs. So this one is another design that uses the Jenny Thompson flower thread uh, for one of the, I think it's white linen thread. Well, anyhow, white Jenny Thompson linen thread is what it said. And then also flower. Oh no, that's it. The flower thread. Oh, over here. They have a DMC flower thread. Hmm. I don't know that I've seen that. This was in 1998. I don't know if they still make it or not. If that's something you would have to find, like on eBay or through some extraordinary measure, maybe Etsy. Um, let's have a look at the design. This is really pretty. I guess I need to make sure I don't show you the pattern down below. Um, anyhow, it's not just cross stitch. It has some other, well, they're like alternate types of cross stitch. Anyway, it's like an embroidery pattern that has cross stitch and also other stitches. Wasn't sure if I'd given you that other information, which is really just about the project and how to begin the project. And then over here, they talk about the different stitches: pin stitch, Greek cross stitch, nun stitch, and then they have some stitch diagrams at the bottom. I love the stitch diagrams, but I'm not sure I would necessarily do the stitch right without the explanation as well of what to do. And then this design, you know, I think I'm not going to show it to you because when I did it before, one of the things I noticed, it's really pretty, is how hard it is to see on the video because the colors are so light. So it is a disadvantage, and it's probably the quality of the pictures as well. So sometimes I'm able to show you designs that even though they use the light colored thread, you can still get a good appreciation for it. But no matter how often I went, I really wasn't satisfied with the picture. So we'll skip that. But it's a wedding sampler, and then they have like a little pillow for, you attach the rings to, if you want to do it that way when you get married. And then like a little sachet. And I liked the sachet for my purposes. Whether you're getting married or not, you can use the sachet. They have some other cute designs. I think I showed you the golf and fishing designs. They have one for a puppy. I'm going to show you this because it was part of a series, like where in one issue they have this picture, another issue this picture, another issue this picture, if you want to stitch all of them. And I had read in the credits or in the front part of the magazine, their thanks to the puppy. Even though the picture is called Naughty Puppy, they said he was a very good puppy that they took the picture of to go with the magazine. I was going to show you this because this is advertising these kits. I guess they're kits. Yeah, kits. They're so beautiful. I just wanted you to see them. They're Stitch World. Like I said, they'd be out of print now. So you'd have to find them some other way. Somebody who doesn't never stitched theirs. Isn't that a wonderful thing? When you buy that kit that you never stitch, just remember kit more so than pattern. When you buy the kit that you never stitch, remember you were like someone's cross stitch angel, making it possible for someone who would not have been able to afford it if you weren't getting rid of it, your kids after you're gone, or you when you downsize, selling it for less, and when it's out of print and nobody would be able to buy it. That's how I think you should see that. Um, so here's the article on needlepoint. I don't do needlepoint, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't enjoy trying. There are things in needlepoint that are similar to cross stitch, and things that are different. So when she talked about common mistakes, there were some that things that you need to be careful about in cross stitch, like have good lighting, don't have your coffee or any kind of drink or anything that's going to make your cross stitch dirty. Wash your hands before you stitch, things like that. somebody, when I said that to someone, they were like, oh, I don't always wash my hands before I stitch. And it is best, but it's not like you can't do it. It's just, it does soil the fabric and the threads. But, sometimes we just don't do everything. Here we go. A lot of the article did deal with um, problems or issues in needlepoint that don't apply to cross stitch. One of the things they talked about was always having it stretched on a frame. And I can see how that would be important in needlepoint, although not having done needlepoint, I can't say if you actually do absolutely have to every time do that. I can imagine that you might because of the way the canvas is to keep it the rows straight so it looks right. But in cross stitch, you don't have to. Some people always stitch on something like a hoop or a frame and have their fabric pulled tight. Some people never do. They always stitch in hand and just hold the fabric. I do both. Sometimes I stitch in hand. I do sometimes use a hoop or a frame. Um, I like them for different reasons. And so it just kind of depends on what suits me or my needs at the time. I'm going to show you a couple of things on this page. This is something, I don't know if you can still find this or not. It's called thread beds, and I've seen advertisements for it in other places. It was a way to store your embroidery floss, and I know I see people, with questions like, how do you store your stuff? So sometimes there's what's available now, and there's what used to be available, how people used to do it. And my nephew believes that the way things are now, uh, this may be an exaggeration, but this is my understanding of what he thinks. The way things are now is the best way things could possibly be. They have evolved over time to what is best. We have abandoned anything that was not good enough and adopted everything that is better. And anyhow, I don't know that that's necessarily true because the best method that was developed, somebody could have, they died and they stopped making that product anymore, even though it could have been the best product. So here's what's called thread beds. I could be wrong. Maybe they do still make this. Maybe you can adapt your own version of that if that's something you want to try. Here, this does show us when they started printing the Stitchery. At this point, they had started in November 1995. So these are some old issues of the Stitchery magazine that you could order, back issues. We'll just look at those. Don't they look awesome? Don't you want more? Don't you want some of these magazines for yourself? I love it. And these are some of the kits or pamphlets that Stitch World offered. I noticed that I have two of the pamphlets myself. My mother has another one. The other one is similar to the one in this magazine and offered in another issue of the Stitchery to go along with the one we looked at. And then these are the only two that I don't have. But I know that I have a pattern very similar for cyclamen. It's more of an embroidery pattern in a book I was looking at the other day on embroidery. And I thought, wait, I just saw that in the Stitchery magazine, but they're just a little different. If you aren't familiar with Stitch World uh, pamphlets and designs, the ones they published anyhow, I just wanted you to have a better feeling for it because I love them so much. And then they had an order form. They had quite a few that you could order um, patterns that they had. Um, then they had this nice little section that had, information on different events and some products. I'm just going to, and commonly asked questions, which had to do with needlepoint. They had some more designs. I'm not showing you all of the designs in the magazine. These were, I think, some cross-stitch borders to put on towels. And then they also had some needlepoint designs for like eyeglass cases, which you could do cross-stitch instead of needlepoint. They were really cute, actually. And then they had some for like bookmarks that you can make for your teacher that's got her name, and like the little things you think of for a teacher: books, worms, apples, things like that for being a bookworm. Um, and like to personalize like a little tote bag. When I was a teacher, let me tell you, those were so nice. I always had some sort of tote bag for carrying all the different kinds of materials teachers carry, whether it's to school or to trainings or all of that. I found them handy. Um, and then they just had some advertisements in the back of the book, list of shops. A lot of needlework shops have closed, and I have, like, all the ones I knew of around here in Utah had closed, which is so sad. But my mom was watching a YouTube video the other day, and what did I see? Oh, she was showing a design for Salt Lake, and I was like, Salt Lake, that's close by. I'm like, and she mentioned a shop, and when she said the street, I'm like, but that's here in Utah. And then that's when she showed the Salt Lake thing, and I was like, oh, wait, there's a needlework shop here in Utah that I could. I mean, it's an hour away here in Utah, but yeah, if I go up to see someone I know up in that area, drive, I don't know, another half an hour. It's kind of a ways to drive, but there just aren't any needle workshops anywhere. Anyhow, these were some actual like shops that were featured here in the magazine. So if you have a shop near where you live and can go there and buy needlework magazines, floss, fabrics, pamphlets, I think that's a great idea because if you don't, you will lose your needlework shop. And it's nice to be able to get things online, but like I really miss being able to just walk into a store and look around and buy something that I see. Obviously, I'm an impulse buyer, but this is the article by Fran Ortmeyer called "Frantics" that is in both. That is in the Stitchery. It's also in Stitch World, and it was in Cross Stitch and Country Crafts, and it's in, I think, Cross Stitch and Needlework. So, like, I don't know if there was some sort of relationship between those magazines or just she happened to be in all those magazines. I didn't really relate to this particular article because it had more to do with knitting, and sometimes another craft, even though you don't do it, it still has like an overlap with what you do. But this was all about um, the the little terms that they use in knitting. It doesn't, I mean, it does apply a little bit like with crochet. And I guess I do crochet sometimes, but not so much with cross stitch. Anyhow, um, I like this magazine, and I would love to find more of it. And there's other magazines I've seen before that I didn't buy when I was in the store, and now I never see in the stores anymore. So they may not publish them anymore, or they just may not know about them. They may have limited space and don't carry them. But can't wait to find the next cross stitch magazine or embroidery magazine that I haven't seen before yet. Leave your comments below. I love to hear what you have to say, your experiences with cross stitch magazines or cross stitching. If you are familiar with these designers, I think you're probably at least familiar with Ursula Michaels. She's been published a lot, but if you have stitched any of these designs or received any of them, if you have any comments about, even though I don't knit or do needlepoint, you can leave your comments. I love to learn what experiences people have had, what they have to say about it. If you've been to some of these kinds of places like the Lyndhurst Mansion or some other place that I don't know about and seen their collection of antique needlework, or been to a festival or a museum that shares that with the community. If you have your own ideas about thread storage or how to store your needlework things, all those kinds of things, I would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you.